This work started with my visit to Prado in Madrid in 2010. I stood there for a long time in front of Velasquez's portrait of Prince Balthazar on horseback, a painting on childhood. And I think it must have reminded me of the paintings of my son on his rocking horse. Also, the hues are very beautiful. The emerald and the silvers create a harmony that is absolutely magnificent. So when I got back to Lyon, I felt like doing the same thing. That is, I felt inspired to give my own interpretation of the painting I had seen in Madrid. Lo and behold, I realized that there was a complexity in that work I certainly did not master. I spent an hour trying, and then my brushes literally dropped from my hands. It was a complete failure. Maybe I didn't realize it at that time, but what I found interesting in Velasquez's work was his way of painting portraits. However, this painting did not allow focus on the prince's face. It emphasized the space, light, color interplay rather than the child's face. Thus, I turned the canvas back to the wall, but did not want to drop the project entirely. Which led me to the question, what did I find fascinating about Velasquez? The answer came immediately, his portraits. With this understanding, it took me a year and a half for painting the series. It was only at the end of the series that I decided to look at my first attempt, to see if I could face the challenge again and complete it. Once I understood that it was portraits that fascinated me in Velasquez, I turned to the characters I liked most, the dwarfs. I was particularly moved by the portrait of Sébastien Mora, the man whose humiliation and helplessness are visible through his hands. His understanding of his condition and his revolt against it are so clearly seen in his eyes that I realized while painting this dwarf, I was actually painting my self-portrait. Ce nain, c'était au fond un autoportrait que je faisais. Après le nain Mora, j'ai voulu rester dans ces figures. After Mora, I decided to continue with dwarfs, those figures of humiliation. The one with the book struck a pose at peace with himself, kind and charitable, almost paternal. It is absolutely not my father's portraits, but there is a goodness in his face. And then those hands of his holding the big open book, which we have no idea what is about. All this added to the classical palette of the blacks, browns and whites. I found all that superb. Kindness and charity of the dwarf, as well as graphic and refined aspect of the colors used, are the two aspects of this painting that I liked. Je trouvais ça superbe. Je crois que ce sont les deux aspects qui m'ont vraiment plu. C'est la bienveillance et le côté graphique et raffiné des couleurs. Dans toute la série, la manière de travailler a globalement été la même, c'est-à-dire j'avais besoin de prendre de la distance par rapport While painting the series, I always used the same method. I needed to distance myself from Velasquez's works. So I began by making small sketches in pencil, ink, or with watercolors. It was important for me to absorb my subjects from those drawings, so that I would not have to look at the reproduction of Velasquez's works, but I would use my drawings while painting. That was the first phase, followed by what I call small paintings, the preparation stage. Even these small paintings are complete works. Qu'on connaît. Là, c'est le nain en carte. Donc, une fois que ces dessins, enfin, ce dessin était fait, ensuite j'avais besoin de passer par une intermédiaire, que moi j'appelais des tableaux préparatoires, même s'ils sont achevés.
During the preparation stage, I looked for the colors that would allow me to reinvent the space and the light I would certainly need in the final stage. So I first looked for the main colors to know if I was following Velasquez's tones or if I was moving away from them. Then, once the big spaces had been covered, according to my inspiration, I looked for ways to work with the colors, how to mix them to create the space and the light, which are my main subject. Only when I found the light I was looking for was I able to work on the big paintings.
Je considérais que j'avais trouvé la lumière que je voulais, que je pouvais partir sur les grands tableaux.
Je crois qu'après les nains,
After the dwarfs, I realized that I had touched a spot deep down in me and that I was actually embarking on a series, which had not been my intention in the first place. The dwarfs were initially just a few paintings that I believe would lead me to the next project. I never thought I would stay with Velasquez for a year and a half. Yet, at that moment, I felt I needed to continue. After the dwarfs, for me a symbol of humiliation, I turned to the popes, the figures representing duplicity and power. I know there had been other painters who had done so and brilliantly. Little by little, working on the popes and focusing on the psychological aspect of power and the fear that was clearly present in the popes' faces, I felt rising deep in me a figure that was more personal, way above the social dimension of all this, a maternal figure, something I could not control. Qui était peut-être une figure maternelle, quelque chose voilà, que je ne maîtrisais pas. Au début de cette série, je suis parti des...
At the beginning of the series on the popes, I was in harmony with the colors used by Velasquez, the magentas. Then, gradually, other colors appeared on his vestment, bluish and emerald greens, and all the painting became green.
Et on envahit complètement le tableau et c'est une dominante d'émeraude qui s'est installée, une dominante verte. Et cette dernière version, je crois, je me suis rendu compte que c'était la dernière version, qu'elle aboutissait à quelque chose d'intime.
The last version of the series touched something private and personal in me. I returned to the red ochres and magenta, and there is something ambiguous there, like a man wearing lingerie. Ambiguity which at first was social, but then became sexual.
Des sous-vêtements féminins, enfin quelque chose d'ambigu. L'ambiguïté qui au départ était plus dans la dimension sociale du pouvoir est devenue presque une ambiguïté au niveau quasiment sexuel.
En fait, il y a deux versions du prince Prosper. Je crois qu'en fait, l'enfant est quand même un des éléments centraux aussi de cette série sur Velasquez, qui est finalement assez autobiographique. The motif of children is very important in this autobiographical series. There are two versions of Prince Prosper. One is all grace, purity, innocence and shyness, while the other shows a child who has already had life experience and is almost deformed in the painting. A child with realistic outlook, but already marked, affected by time. Par le temps. Je crois que la figure féminine chez Velasquez est essentielle. Bon, beaucoup de femmes. Women are essential in Velasquez's work. Many queens, princesses, and that infant. My infant, Marguerite, as a little girl, already carrying all the misery of the world on her shoulders, transformed herself into my mother, whose childhood suffering found its place in me. Je crois que c'est un peu ma mère que j'ai vu surgir, des souffrances de l'enfance, des choses du même coup qui sont déposées en moi. Et un tableau qui est dans la matière, qui m'a demandé beaucoup de travail. This painting demanded a lot of work from me. Between the bouquet of flowers à la Manet and the little girl's sadness, sorrow, I felt a profound link, which meant a lot for me. Il se joue pour moi beaucoup. Tous ces portraits n'ont pas été aussi... Not all the paintings were as personal as those of dwarfs or children or the popes. Some of them, like the portrait of the king, gave me simply a pleasure to work with colors. Anyway, the king is wearing a mask-like face, and so there is nothing to look for there. no psychoanalysis or interpretation beyond an image on the canvas. I just enjoy working with those reds and that light.
Il y a simplement une joie de travailler ces rouges et ces lumières.
This painting is a portrait of a sculptor and also a tribute to the King Philip IV, because the artist is sculpting a bust of the king left purposefully unfinished. Painting my version, I replaced Philip IV's head with the head of a dog I used to have. It is an ironic tribute to my dog, but also a reference to the dog often present in Velasquez's painting of hunting parties. I liked the palette of this painting very much, its sienna soil colors, as well as its whites and blacks.
C'est quelque chose que je trouvais très beau.
Even though my series focused mainly on portraits, it was clear for me that I needed to paint Christ as well. More than 30 years ago, I had already painted Christ with its mass of black hair covering half of his face, which was a clear reference to Velasquez at that time. This time, I kept the half-covered face and the loincloth, although I would have preferred to paint him nude. As to the rest of the painting, it became an expression of my personal poetry. Velasquez's abstract black background became a deep black night, and the ground which leads to the edge of the night makes it a completely different painting.
Donc c'est devenu tout à fait autre chose. Velasquez a fait deux petits paysages.
Velasquez painted two small landscapes of the Villa Médicis in Rome, which I believe are his only landscapes. As I am a natural landscape painter, I thought it rather obvious to handle that subject as well. These landscapes are beautiful, with a feeling of anxiety, especially in one of them. Painting them was a way for me to recapture a landscape as a place of solitude, because there is never human presence in my landscapes. It was also an occasion for me to try to answer the question why I had spent so much time on Velasquez. What did I let myself get into? Was it about Velasquez or about me?
De comprendre pourquoi j'avais fait ça, pourquoi je suis resté 1 an et demi sur Velasquez. Bon, ce qui est pas neutre, c'est pas 2-3 tableaux d'après lui, mais c'est véritablement bon. Je me suis englouti volontairement dans cette œuvre. Enfin, exactement, dans quoi est-ce que je me suis englouti? C'est ça la question. Et je pense que la dimension d'introspection est primordiale, et en fait plus que dans l'œuvre de...
I believe that the introspection I underwent was primordial in the series and was the subject of that analysis more than Velasquez, who simply served me as a guide. The humanity of his characters allowed me to reach those that had been deposited in me. I'm firmly convinced that was what gave me my force and motivation to paint this series. Facing Velasquez's works led me to facing myself. My space is a classical three-dimensional space, the same than Velasquez's space, not the two-dimensional space present in modern art. What makes my paintings different from their inspiration, and what should prevent any accusation of pastiche or imitation, is the psychological dimension of my personal introspection. At this project awoke the ghost that had been sleeping in me for a long time, which meant I took risk of failing.
Voilà, des fantômes qui étaient déposés.